What is a fact that you thought everybody knew but apparently you were the only one? You can eat the skin of a kiwi. Yes. But it's polite to ask first. I just yesterday had a close friend of mine. Mind you, he's very knowledgeable of computers. Be starstruck when I mentioned middle mouse button could be used on Chrome to open stuff and new tabs or close said tabs. He mostly uses keyboard shortcuts, so he just used Ctrl plus LMB to do the same. Which I had no knowledge was a thing. There's actually male calico cats. Of course they have a different variation of chromosomes, XY instead of XY in most cases, but they do exist. 1 in 3,000 calicos will be a male. If it's a male, then only 1 in 10,000 will be fertile. Also, calico is not a breed of cat. Many different breeds can have a calico mutation. Cyclists shave their legs to make massages more comfortable and for hygiene purposes in case of an accident. It has nothing to do with aerodynamics. You know the 3 dots on a coconut? One of them is fake and you can stab it with a steak knife and easily carve out a hole big enough to get a straw through. Oh, and just in case, you don't need to use a lot of force to check. The knife should sink into the fake dot extremely easily and bounce off the real ones. Do not go all in on stabbing a coconut. You zoom in and out by holding Control and scrolling your mouse wheel. It is so frustrating watching someone fumble for the zoom controls. But I don't want to be a dick and call out the solution. Just use your mouse wheel. Crows chase birds of prey. Some small birds will do it too. There are pictures at work of raptors getting mobbed by smaller birds and I'm always surprised when people are amazed by it. It happens fairly often in my neighborhood. Edit. Also that animals like crows and non-human primates are very intelligent. That I definitely thought was common knowledge. If you press the Windows key and the period key at the same time, it pulls up a whole list of images. That your local police station has a direct number you can dial. You don't have to call 911 to get to them. And that way you won't hold up people on the line for medical emergencies or fires or other things that are really time sensitive. In a formal meal where there are multiple forks utensils on both sides of the plate. They're placed so that you can work from the outside inwards for each course. Penguins only living in the South Pole while polar bears live in the North Pole. Some people think that polar bears and penguins both interact with one another. If you hold open a door, don't do that by standing in the doorway. The other day, I asked my girlfriend why she didn't use Alt-Tab. She just didn't know about it. Her life just got a whole lot easier. I knew this but stole the whole text directly from Google search. Percentages are reversible. So, 16% of 25 is the same thing as 25% of 16. 4. Only one is easier to calculate in your mind than the other. Semicolon. Dot. Now, the trick isn't great for numbers where you can't do either percentage in your head. Like 17% of 39 or 39% of 17. FCK knows how much that is. 5. 6. Around that. Pretty good still. Laser is an acronym for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. So much legal stuff that I feel people should have learned in high school. And you are the victim of a crime. You don't need a lawyer and you aren't in charge of prosecuting the defendant. Criminal cases are always the government versus the defendant. So the government is represented by the office of the district Commonwealth's attorney. Pleading not guilty is how you get to trial. I can't believe how many people say OMG he is such a liar for pleading not guilty when everyone knows he did it. Well, pleading not guilty does not mean he didn't do it. It means he is making the state prove their case. Which he is constitutionally able to do. Just get a restraining order. No. You can't just get one. There is a standard to meet. It varies by jurisdiction. But generally your life safety is to be threatened. So no. The sign that say slower traffic keep right is usually in some kind of hieroglyphics to the people I share the road with. Scradina's cat thought experiment isn't just a cat in a box. There has to be a device that may or may not kill the cat. Edit. Vaginists don't get loose from having sex, they snap back into place pretty easily. If someone with a vagina felt loose and easy to be in during sex, it meant you were doing a good job and they were aroused. Gotta love the people who think f-king a stranger every day makes a loose vagina, but f-king your husband every day somehow doesn't. I got laughed in my face when I told people that smoking, amongst other harmful things, is very bad for your skin. That it is should've instead of should've. I obviously don't think I'm the only one who knows that, but I'm baffled by how often I read that mistake. The order of the planets. That the idea that you eat X number of spiders every year is complete hogwash. You know when there's a Friday the 13th in the calendar because that particular month starts on a Sunday. When you get added to a Facebook group with thousands of members, there is absolutely no need to make a post thanking everyone for letting you join. Narwhals are real creatures. Had conversation with a couple of grown-ass adults that thought they were mythical whale unicorns. Had to show them multiple pictures. At that point I could not look at them without laughing. Apparently, the difference between your and your. Category. Useful useless knowledge. Most cars have a little gas pump symbol next to the fuel gauge with a little arrow that shows you on which side of your car the gas cap is, at least in my home country. LMK if you've seen it. The academic job market for professors has been horrible for decades. It's not a new problem. Just saying, because when I hear people complain about having a PhD and not being able to get a faculty job. WTF. Didn't that come up during grad school? IDK about other people, but the people around me didn't know that the sword in the stone King Arthur pulled out isn't Excalibur, it's Caliburn, and he gets Excalibur later on. Edit. The difference between quarantine and medical isolation. PFFT. When is understanding that ever gonna come in handy? I once joked to co-workers, U.S. AVG age 50, that I speak Esperanto like a native and was met with silence. Nobody had ever heard of Esperanto. Light years isn't a measurement of time. It's a measurement of length. That you don't freeze in space. The amount of people that think you'll freeze or even explode in space is crazy. Often, when I mention something about the multiple moon landings, manned flights, some people think there was only one landing, and that it was probably fake. That condoms don't protect against STDs as well as people think. Skin to skin contact still happens around a condom. Slippage and breakage happen more frequently than you would think. Lol, latex can't protect what it isn't covering. Edit. Also, happy cake day. That there is an extra scene at the end of Chamber of Secrets. I like to watch the credits, film school alum, and I like the little post-credit scene showing Locke releasing a new book about his amnesia. But apparently I am the only person that remembers it because every other month some person posts an OMG did you know post with everyone shitting their pants about it. Cows can climb up ladders and stairs. Okay, I'm gonna be real with you. That a bear served as a private in World War II and was promoted to corporal by the N for carrying artillery crates to the guns during battle. I'm definitely not the only one. But there is a big gap between those working in the medical scientific community and the general public. For example, a lot of people don't realize the huge biological differences between different cancers. One drug is never going to cure all cancer types. Cancer isn't one disease. Every instance is different. Apparently why cookie dough is considered unsafe for consumption. People automatically assume that the egg is to blame. But it's not, it's the flour. Birds tea on the grain before it's milled and then sold off. You really only use flour to cook with it. So by cooking it, you're heat treating it. With cookie dough that hasn't been made with specifically heat treated flour, you're at risk for getting sick. Not medical professionals. But the public, that addiction is a type of mental illness. The drugs or alcohol abuse is a symptom. And that one can be addicted to a variety of unhealthy habits which are not consumed or are not drugs: gambling, sex, working out, adrenaline, eating, sugar, etc. It's a medical problem, not a criminal problem. The difference between map projections. I went to public school in Indiana and we were taught about the major map projections in the first F-king grade. Also, I have seen a globe. The fact that people on this website routinely act flabbergasted when they learn a Mercator projection does not project size accurately is just mind-blowing. And it was an entire side plot in that stupid West Wing clip. Literally discovered 11 hours ago. At the age of 43. That some people think a holler is a euphemism or nickname. It isn't. It's a real geographic feature. It's the land surrounding a body of water flowing out of a cleft or canyon. Source: I'm in a holler as we speak. Yeah. Old Zealand is not an island, but rather a province. That is spelled Zealand and belongs to Netherlands. Edit. Change city to province. My bad. Data is a plural form of datum. You do not have a piece of data or datas. That you can dial whatever emergency number you know. In whatever country, and it will dial the correct country's emergency services. i.e. you can dial 911 in New Zealand and it will connect to their 111 emergency number. New Zealand is real. A friend once told me that it's always dark at the North Pole and always bright at the South Pole. And that polar day and polar night are only at lower latitudes closer to the polar circle. And on the pole itself it's always dark. And that it's hot on the southern pole. I mean, that's exactly what Vikings thought 1000 years ago. So it is pretty weird when you think that the knowledge has been passing from generation to generation unchanged and there are still people with such outdated knowledge in a country with extremely good education standards. ASL, American Sign Language, is a natural language. It wasn't made up any more than English or Taiwanese is made up. It arose naturally. You can use the logo on a USB drive cable to find the right side to plug it in on the first try every time. You have to know the orientation of the plug and the outlet. If you lay your bottles down pointing towards the cashier at the supermarket, they won't fall or roll all over the place on the conveyor belt. That agua is Spanish for water. I thought that was one of those things, handful of words like hola or amigo, that was pop culture enough that everyone knew even if they don't speak Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. Then I moved to a house on a street called Agua Drive. Verbally telling people my address, they would sometimes balk and I would say, you know Spanish for water, and they would just stare blankly and then I'd have to spell it. I lived there for 7 years. I'm not sure how many times I gave my address out in that period. But I never found a single person who knew agua meant water, and I thought it was common knowledge. Depression is a disease. As a teenager, barely any one of my friends know how to cook vegetables. Don't even get me started on simple meats. Nothing. Everyone has exactly the same knowledge and experience as me, and there's nothing you can do to convince me otherwise. Did you know that there is a city called Rome on literally every continent except Antarctica? Saying I could care less is wrong. It doesn't make any sense. That means you care at least enough to be able to care less than you already do. The correct saying is I couldn't care less. But I haven't heard anyone, besides myself, say it correctly. That the farther the temperature goes below freezing, the better your chances are for accidentally spiderwebbing your windshield with a wiper blade left standing up. Knock it over. And there's a solid chance the spring tension will be enough to crack it. In most cases, leaving them down is safer than leaving them up. A good wiper blade is like $30. They're not worth the risk. I don't know. I have lived in northern Michigan for almost my whole life and I have never seen or heard of anyone breaking their windshield with their wipers in this way. The main reason I will stand them up is not to protect the wipers. but to prevent them from freeze to the windshield and getting covered in ice, making them useless if I am driving and it is actively snowing. I'm continually perplexed by people's lack of knowledge on different kinds of birds. I'll see a really common bird and have to tell whoever I'm with what bird it is, as they can't tell. I love seeing a new bird and looking it up in my little bird book. He the only one. But primary school maths and physics are apparently unknown to a surprisingly high number of people. Mid-50s professional engineer here. Mastered statics, dynamics, physics, calculus and differential equations in college. My son is in intro calculus in school and I haven't got a clue how to help him in class walk. Math is a skill that you lose if you don't use it. My engineering is now mostly lookup tables and simple arithmetic. The chainsaw was created to help remove the pubic bone to make it easier and less time consuming during childbirth, not for cutting wood as we use it today. How to use a turn signal. If you're pluralizing a word such as, for example, sister-in-law, you pluralize the root word. So it would be sisters-in-law. Similarly, if you have two guys named Mr. Johnson, 50% of Roger Federer's name is Earl Mayo. Blowing air and adding voice into the middle of your index finger and thumb makes a pretty good hand trumpet. I just cannot work this one out no matter how hard I try. I thought the Washington football team was in Washington State, not Washington D.C. I'm 32. I thought my buddy was playing a joke on me and blew him off without a second thought. It came up again the next time we saw each other, when someone else jumped a sign on the joke. I looked it up. I was genuinely bewildered. I couldn't believe I didn't know this at 32 years old. Be good to yourselves. India is part of Asia. For some reason here in Australia, Asia is known as only the countries in Southeast Asia. That the First Amendment freedom of speech only protects you from government punishment for what you say, not from any consequences. That the fingers doesn't have any muscles. 1. The British Isles, the UK, England, Britain, and Great Britain are 5 different things. The amount of times I hear Scotland is in England in 2. IDK if this one counts as a saying. But the people on the YouTube comment section like Mr. Wolt, the infamous Fortnite kid who always says the same thing over and over again and gets likes just because he's verified, and it's always something like, who else said GOT his on the recommendations are FTR 12 years. If you boil a can of condensed milk it turns into dulce de leche. Small sugar ants are adult ants and not baby versions of bigger ants.